I wanted to thank Ran, Rugby Americas North, and Neil specifically for inviting me along. Firstly, to commentate you guys throughout this week. It's an absolute pleasure watching you guys play and commentate in these games. And a major improvement in the standard of rugby over the last couple of years. I've seen it firsthand watching you guys and girls. So congratulations for that. Thanks very much for coming and listening to this. It's nice to see that there's people in the region that want to take their careers and university education seriously. So it's great to have, maybe 40 or so people here today. What I want you to do here is take as much information from me as you can. If I'm not giving you the information that you want, ask me questions. I'm absolutely okay with that. Okay, and jump in, hands up first, and ask me the question, and I'll repeat it so that the camera can hear me as well. Okay. So let's get into it. So the process for university education in the USA to get into it isn't easy. It's a complex process, okay? There's not too many Americans in here, but most Americans understand the system because they've just been raised in it and they get prepared for it through their high school career. You guys in the Caribbean, for the majority of you, that you're not getting exposed to that, and the USA system is a little bit complex. So I work for a company that does that, and you guys are happy. I'm happy to offer that service to you. But today, this is specifically to give you guys some free information and see if you can go ahead and do it and sort of roll your sleeves up and get involved in it. So why is it complex? Well, firstly, there's the application process itself. You may not know which schools would be applicable to you because of the studies that they may or may not do. The applications themselves. How many have filled out a job application over the years? It's tedious, isn't it? University applications are even worse. Okay, it's like, especially if you're out of work and you've got to fill out 5, 6, 7 a day maybe to just get that next job. It's the same with university. You've got to fill out a lot of applications. It's time consuming. And honestly, it becomes like a full-time hobby. It's like, it's a hobby, but it's full-time, and you've got to find time to do it each day. To be able to progress. Secondly, there's the testing side of things. So if you're from outside the USA, even within the USA, you have to do something called an SAT. Has anybody ever done an SAT exam for university, for the US specifically? Okay, again, how was that experience? Just random thought. It was okay for you? Okay, so you're really smart, basically is what you're saying. No, but it is. It's a complex thing, and the SAT exam's not very easy. So that's something that even the scheduling of it is difficult, because they do it 5, 6, 7 times a year, depending on where you live in the world. And it is an international exam. So that's another part of it that's complicated. And then finding the school that's good for you. Again, there's literally thousands of universities in the USA. So finding the right one for you is difficult. You have to do the research. You have to roll your sleeves up, and Google's a beautiful thing, and internet is basically advanced the world in many ways, and especially for university students and making life a little bit easier there. And then there's the visa process. The visa process for the USA is extremely complicated. It can be made easy if you do things correctly. So it's about preparation. What I wanted to make sure is that you guys have got the clipboard that's going around. Make sure you fill in at least your email and phone numbers with your country code on it. So I can send you guys, I may even from this group just make a group chat on like WhatsApp or something, and I can bounce stuff out to you guys additionally afterwards, because there is a lot of info. So one of the first things I really want to get into your head is there's lots of free information out there. So make sure you go search it. You've got to do the work and find this information. I'll give you some stuff over the next few days after this talk, and I'll definitely give you some today. But make sure that you're asking me questions, and we'll get plenty of information to you. So I want to get into a little bit of, firstly on the second page, who I am. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I used to play rugby league in the UK many years ago, and it wasn't very good. So now I do this kind of thing. But rugby league definitely helped me. I know in Jamaica there's a pretty strong rugby league culture. I got into rugby union a little bit later in life. I'm the head coach at Okapi Wanderers over in South Florida, and I built that club over the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm a coach principally, I guess, and then I've kind of fallen into being an agent. I have a couple of professional players, one over in the UK, one here in, we're in Mexico, but up in the US, playing in the MLR. So I do that on a professional level, and then obviously a big chunk of my day is dedicated to finding college scholarships for guys and girls just like you, within the USA and obviously as well abroad in the UK and as far away as Australia. So my agency is MGM Sports Management. If you haven't heard of it, I'll happily pass that on in information as well, so that you can check that out, and constantly doing things where I can help guys and girls learn how to play better and improve themselves through school and obviously through rugby itself. A big part of the reason I'm involved in rugby is the social development side of things. It's really an absolute, like I said earlier, it's an absolute pleasure for me to see you guys developing. And I see a few faces in here that I've seen for maybe 3-4 years in a row and coming on in leaps and bounds. I don't want to call them out right here, but there's a few faces that I see that it's very cool to see you guys developing as adults and obviously as rugby players too. So that's enough about me. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Page 3 in the pamphlet here that I want you to try and follow along with. You'll see some logos on there. That's they're the governing bodies of university athletics within the USA. So the NCAA, the NAIA, the Junior College Athletic Association, and the Community College. So you can divide that into the two on the right basically are community colleges. They're usually, not always, but usually 2-year colleges. And the two on the left tend to be more 4-year colleges. You can go, everybody in here could get into any of these schools, okay? The thing that I want to get across to you more than anything else is you're all capable of getting into these schools, okay? There's a school for everybody. Obviously, not everybody's going to get into Yale and Harvard. And on the other end, you may not be able to afford to go into Harvard and Yale, but there are scholarships on many levels, and there's a lot of variables. One of the big points that I want to get across is the amount of variables on cost of school and scholarships available at schools is massive. I mean, really, I'm talking close to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the broad range of education, academic scholarships and athletic scholarships. And there are even options to do partials. So you get a little bit of money on the athletic side and a little bit of money on the academic side, okay? So in amongst there, in the US, you've got, like I said, there's thousands of them. There's the variables of academic, athletic, and then financial, and then there's public and private. Tend to be the community colleges, tend to be public, government-owned or city-owned, and then the private, obviously, tend to be a bit more expensive, but are accessible if you've got everything moving in the right direction. And again, it comes down to you and how much work you're willing to do as a student, as a young adult, and looking for opportunities and working hard towards them. It's a lot of, like I said earlier, rolling your sleeves up. So each school within the USA, they have their own pricing policies. So again, every school, you can go from as cheap as $12,000 a year up to, I've seen Harvard at like $100,000 a year. Okay, the policies within those schools, so who would qualify based on how tall and short you are, how smart and stupid you are, how athletically gifted you are. Every school has a different policy for it, and that's an important thing to take away, that the variables in there depend on literally a million things. So don't feel like, oh, well, I've only got one leg so I can't do something. Absolutely not. I've seen kids, one of my own players in South Florida, he got offered a scholarship last year for rugby, specifically at a very good rugby school, and he's dyslexic. He didn't know that particular school had a scholarship for dyslexia. So he firstly got a rugby scholarship, and secondly, when he got there, they were like, oh, I heard that I got your reports from school and I heard that you're dyslexic. He said, yeah, okay, well, you get an extra $5,000. Just because just for that school. And the reason why is a rugby player played for that school many years ago, was very successful afterwards in life, and he was dyslexic. So he donates every year, this particular gentleman that's much older now, he donates $5,000 a year to any rugby player that goes into that school who has dyslexia. Nobody knew about it until that kid walked in the door and figured it out. So, that's the kind of thing that can happen for you. So again, minimum standards for each school is very different. And again, that's why I say, if you do the SAT score and you don't get 1,500, it's not the end of the world. And if you do your SAT score, if you do your SAT and you get 1500, great, but you could be at the other end of the scale and get in 800 or 900, and there's still opportunities for you. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't just bail out because you have an SAT score that's poor on the first shot. And we'll go into that a little bit as well. The governing bodies, again, they can do something very involved or very, very laid back. NCAA does control the rules for eligibility, and we get into the age thing quite a lot with NCAA because most NCAA schools will disqualify you over the age of 24 for athletic scholarships. But then when you go down into NAIA, they will allow people doing their master's degrees to get scholarship money. Not necessarily athletic money, but certainly academic money. So those are the kind of things for the ladies, the mature students back there. And even in the community college stuff as well. They may be 2-year schools, but you can definitely do things and get scholarships there as well. So on the field, you've got to be able to perform, but especially if you get an athletic scholarship, but once you go into classes, you've got to perform. Okay, you've got to be able to do the work, and it's not just turning up and then life's rosy for 2 or 4 years. You've got to put the work in once you're there. Rugby, specifically within the USA, is not run by these governing bodies. Okay, gets a little bit complicated, and that's why companies like mine exist, so we can figure out the difference between who's running the sport, who's running the school, and then that crossover stuff and the overlaps. But rugby is run by USA Rugby in the United States, even on the college level. So in terms of the rules, in terms of the organization of the league, and feel free to ask any questions. I know most of the answers to it, but if I don't, I'll get it back to you. But again, then it's all divided up into divisions. So you got D1A, D1AA, D2, and then NSCRO. Is anybody familiar with NSCRO? No? Okay, that's the National Small College Rugby Organization. Okay, and they're actually the biggest division. They have 400 rugby teams. There's about 600 teams within the USA that play rugby on a variety of levels. But NSCRO is the biggest in terms of college. Now, what does happen when you get towards has everybody seen the CRC on television? Maybe not if you're in the Caribbean. CRC is the College Rugby Championship. That's shown on, this year was ESPN, but previously it was on NBC. And this year they actually put in an NSCRO All-Star team into that competition against the D1 teams. So NSCRO is definitely growing. They're usually smaller schools, less than 3,000. Gents, come in, come grab a seat. Join in. Quick, give me a hustle, let's go. Thank you, grab a seat. Share a pamphlet with someone nearby to you. There's a couple up here if you need them. Yeah, so NSCRO is definitely something that you might want to look at. Smaller schools tend to have a bit more personal one-on-one care because they can. The classes are smaller, that kind of thing. So genuinely much better, in my opinion, for your education. You can go to your Yales and Harvards and walk out there with a diploma, and that's great. And companies will come knocking your door down trying to get you to work for them. That's fine. But the NSCROs, if you genuinely want to learn things and advance that way, take a look at those. And I can definitely introduce you to a lot of them. One of the biggest problems finding the school is, what's good for you? What do you want to study? Anybody here want to go into medicine, for example? Who wants to go into medicine? Just 1, 2? Okay, 3. What about engineering? Give me a shout out on what you want to study. What are you interested in, miss? It's louder. Physiotherapy and medicine, okay. Ladies in the back, the 3 at the back there, what are you interested in studying? Okay, all right, so there's obviously a lot of athletes in here, right? So physical therapy, sports medicine, that kind of stuff, that's going to be popular. There's literally hundreds of universities in the US that will offer that. And if they don't offer that specific course that you're looking for, they'll offer other things that can give you credits towards it. Like if you might want to go to a 2-year college, get enough credits in a certain thing, and that will lead you into a bigger, maybe a better school later on. Okay, so start thinking about that kind of stuff. What are you interested in? And do the research on the schools that are taking those subjects. Anybody here, this is not really pertinent to the university thing, anybody here interested in playing rugby professionally? Seriously, if you feel confident, you'd love to be able to do it if you have the opportunity. A good chunk of you, maybe more than half. For the guys, obviously it's a little bit easier. For the girls, I see it happening. I genuinely see it happening. I hear probably every couple of months someone talking to me and say, I'm going to set up a league and we're going to start paying females. Or in England now, they've got the England national team are getting paid. Australia, the same thing's happening. New Zealand, they're starting up a professional league. It's going to happen hopefully in our generation, especially the younger crowd. Okay, so you've got to start thinking about that. College within the USA, on an athletic level, gives you the access to facilities, mentalities, and focus to be able to play sports on a professional level. I know teams within the US, they're training 4 or 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. They're basically professional athletes, but they're getting paid to go to school instead of actually getting paid. And and I'll get into that a little bit as well over the next few things. The perfect example I mentioned to you earlier, a guy called AJ McGinty. Anybody heard of AJ McGinty? Name ring a bell? Yeah? So he plays rugby for Sale Sharks in the Aviva Premiership. He's an Irish high school kid, kind of flew under the radar in the Irish system. Nobody knew who he was. He came to the USA, went to Life University. You guys all know Life. Many of you played against Life University players. He went to Life University, spent 4 years there as a student. By the end of his 4 years, it was 2015, he qualified to play for the US national team. He's Irish, but he's lived in the US for 4 years. The World Cup came around, a couple of fly halves got injured, and they gave him a cap because he was a decent fly half. He ended up traveling as a reserve for the US national team for the World Cup in 2015. I commentated on that World Cup, and I saw him 2 years earlier playing a exhibition game for Life University against a university from Argentina. And I said, oh, that kid's handy. Where's he from? Someone said, oh, he's Irish. I said, oh, great. Didn't think anything of it. 2 years later, I'm commentating for the World Cup, and AJ McGinty comes on at the field at fly half. I'm like, I know that kid. He's never playing for those guys. By the end of the World Cup, he got himself a contract. He was an amateur. He was a top amateur in the USA playing for this college, and managed to get himself a contract with Connacht Rugby Club in Ireland, in Galway. Played in the Pro 12s, won the Pro 12 competition, and then the next year now he's playing at, come grab a seat boys, and now he's playing at Sale Sharks in the Aviva Premiership, probably making about $300,000 a year. Okay, and that's the bottom end of the scale. I know guys that are getting paid nearly £1 million per season, plus endorsements, Nike, Adidas, all that kind of stuff. Okay, guys, so these are opportunities. For me personally, it's a massive thing to see guys and girls going into university and spending those 4 years working hard, getting educated, being in a professional environment, and then coming out of it and really having not just the education, but being able to go professional and getting paid for it, and maybe playing for their countries, which you guys are already doing. And can I give you a big round of applause? You're playing for your country. That's pretty cool stuff. That's massive. I never got that opportunity. It's very cool to see you guys here. So take a look at page 4 on the pamphlet I've handed out. And I just want to give you a little bit of this kind of goes on from what I've just been saying, but the lifestyle of a student in university, especially, I'm talking D1 and D1AA. These universities, as I said, they've got great facilities. A normal situation would be 2 hours in the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, you got to get out of bed. Then you go have breakfast. Then you go to class. I've seen guys, especially at Life University, Monday afternoons at lunchtime, they'll go get together for lunch. They'll video analyze from the game at the weekend, go back to classes in the afternoon, go home or to their dorm rooms, have dinner again, and then go train in the evening. Right there, you've got 5 hours of training. That's just Monday. Tuesday, they might do just a half day where they only do 2 hours in the evening. Wednesday, it's another 5 hour day. Thursday, 2 hours. Friday, another 5 hour day. It's all preparation then for the weekend. So that's the lifestyle. If you're really serious about going to university and playing rugby on a scholarship, that's what you've got to think about. Can you do that? Can you function by working hard, studying, and maybe even getting a job part-time? Okay? That's another part of it. You can work part-time in the USA as a student on campus. 20 hours, I believe, is the maximum. Okay? So for those that maybe you're not going to get the full ride, those that are going to get maybe a partial scholarship, you can go get a job as well. You're young. I sleep 6 hours, and I'm 40. Okay? You guys can live on like 4 hours a night. Okay? You have no choice. You're young, all right? But on that particular page, there's a couple of, what I want to do is, if you go into YouTube, and I'll put this on the group chat afterwards when I get all your information, please make sure that clipboard's still getting passed around for the guys that turned up late. There's a YouTube channel, so it's Athletes USA is the name of the company. So if you go into YouTube and search that, there's lots of information. My company gives basically every Wednesday kind of a Facebook Live thing, where either the owner or myself will be interviewing people that have either gone through the system already or they're experts in a particular field of school or a particular field of sport. So that's something that's available for everybody, and I encourage you guys to go to that YouTube channel and just absorb information if it's something serious that you want to do. So there's a couple of ones on there that I want really you to have a look at. One is the Life University Rugby Scholarship interview. Myself and Chris are on that picture. Chris is the owner of Athletes USA, and myself and him went up to Life University, interviewed the coach, got a tour of the university so you can look, have a good look at that university specifically. It's one of the top rugby colleges in the country. And then the other interview, which you can hardly see, it's a horrible copy, but that's Tendai Rioja. He's from South Africa, is one of the kids that I placed. He was a very good South African rugby player through high school, made it to the under-18s national team and was playing for Western Province Stormers Academy, and came over to the USA, and he's a kid that I placed in Life University, doing very well for himself, just completed his first season, didn't make the first team in Life University. This kid is an under-18 South African national team player and didn't make the first team at Life University. So the standard is very, very high, very demanding. But he completed his first year. Going into his second, he's getting additional scholarships in his second year. And that may happen. You may get a small scholarship in your first year. You have to live on campus. Second year, if you've performed in that first year and you've done what you're supposed to do, and you're checking off all the boxes for the coaches, you'll get additional scholarships second, third, fourth year. Okay, so that's something to think about. And again, you've got to roll your sleeves up annually to make that happen. So if you flick over, any questions for me at this point? I know I'm banging on. Feel free to jump in with anything, and I'm happy to answer them. Next page is a friend of mine, a gentleman called Alex Corbachero. Anybody know Alex? Anybody know who he is? Alex Corbachero. He's a prop forward for England, retired a few years ago, quite young. He had a few injuries, hurt his shoulder, hurt his knee, and decided to give it a break. He did get a couple of offers to go back after he'd rehabbed himself, but he ended up on South Beach, and I went and knocked on his door one day and told him, you got to help kids play rugby. So he got involved, and now he works with NBC on television in the USA, and he's doing great things trying to help promote rugby and help kids like yourselves get into either college or professional rugby. So we have a partnership, myself at Athletes USA, with my agency at MGM Sports Management, and then Team Corbs is his company, and he's basically opening doors on several levels. He's an American that grew up in England and ended up playing rugby for England and the British Lions. When playing for British Lions, he kind of got called into a team at the last minute on the tour to Australia. I don't know if you're familiar with the British Lions, but every 4 years they tour either South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand. So a few years ago, he ended up on the British Lions team playing in Australia, came in as a sort of last minute substitute and crushed it. Basically made his name right there, and single-handedly, according to the Australian coach, won the tour for the British Lions. And after that, had a successful career with Northampton Saints in the Aviva Premiership, and now has retired. So he's doing some really cool things. He's opening a lot of doors for us in this region. Not specifically for RAN, but North America, the Caribbean. Basically, he said to me, if we can find players that have got the talent to get to university, let's get them in and try and figure it out any way we can. And he'll use his name to open doors for you guys. Okay? So it's get interactive, call us, speak to us, ask questions. I'm very available on WhatsApp. I'm very available on social media. If you guys have been following the feed from Rugby Americas North, I'm posting on Instagram, right? I'm a little obsessed with it, but it works. It gets the name out there. It gets rugby out there. I'm an English guy trying to push, literally shove it down Americans' throats, shove it down the Caribbean's throats, and even down into South America. I speak Spanish, so I do it that way as well. So I've got Alex behind me using his brand to push rugby. So I want you guys to take advantage of that. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about him and let you know that he's on board with us. So let's switch over and let's get into the nuts and bolts. So how to secure a scholarship. There's many ways to do it, but number one way to do it is work hard. You're not going to get this laid on a plate for you. It's not going to happen. All right? Is everybody okay with that? Everybody okay? They're going to have to work to get a scholarship. All right? Nobody's going to come over and say, hey, you look cute. Here's a scholarship. Not going to happen. Okay? You've got to understand that. You've got to work. You've got to do the research. You've got to be obsessed with it to make it happen. Okay? I mentioned earlier about how old you were and that kind of thing, and I asked her, who's 16? And there was nobody in the room that's 16, right? The best time to start is when you're 16. You guys are all older. So you need to work double time. Okay? Mature students, you're thinking about master's degrees, you've got to work triple time. All right? Roll your sleeves up. You've got it. You're going to have to. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck at home. You're going to be living with your mom and dad until you're 35 years old, like I did. I'm only joking. I left home when I was 20. Okay? But you're going to end up stuck at home, and you've got to do something with your life. Okay? Use the opportunity. You're playing for your country. Stick that on your rugby resume. I'm playing for my country. I'm awesome. Okay? That's cool. I didn't get that opportunity. I played pro rugby for 3 years and didn't grow anymore, and they said, you're no good. Go do something else. Okay? You guys are playing for your country. You should use that to your advantage. Take advantage now. Don't wait till you're 25, 26, 27, 30. It's too late. Okay? It's not too late, girls. Don't worry. It's not too late. One of the first things that you've got to start doing is collecting statistics. You all went through high school. Get your certifications. Scan them. Take photographs of them. Start storing them. Okay? Get your Dropbox account and start collecting the school statistics. Any achievements. Think about what you've done as a person. Think about the things. Were you head boy in your school, head girl in your school? Did you pass your GCSEs, or in the Caribbean, I don't remember what the guys call it. Right. Those kind of things. Start collecting them, scan them, collect them, get them together, and store them. So that when someone asks for them, you can send them like that. Because if a coach calls you tomorrow and says, yep, send me all of your information, what are you going to start doing? Oh, let me call my coach from 4 years ago. Let me call my mathematics teacher from 2 years. No. You need it now. Because when the opportunity comes, you need to be able to send it the next day. Because you know what that coach is going to do if you don't give it to him the next day? Forget about you and move on to the next person that's prepared. Just like when you send a crappy resume for work. They just tear it up. Oh, they can't spell. I don't care. I'm going to get another person. A coach will receive, and I saw this at Life University, a guy opened his email on a Monday morning. Over the weekend, he received 1,200 emails from students alone. You think he's going to look through those? He might. He might look at 3 or 4 because he's got time that morning while he's having his coffee. The other 1,295, he's not going to look at it. He'll just go past it. Okay? You've got to be prepared. You've got to be able to take action immediately if they're asking for it. Okay? So start collecting information. On the academic side, absolutely. On the athletic side, what do you think you could do? What do you think you could do to collect information? Athletically. Videos. Are these games filmed? Neil's done a great job. He's got these guys in the back filming every game. You got my dulcet tones commentating on it. Right? Take it, copy and paste that link and store it somewhere. It doesn't matter where. Put it in your email and email yourself. But it's there available. How many of you guys have ever made a highlight reel? A highlight reel of yourself? Yeah? Hands up, tell me. Who has? Just 2 of you? So 2 of you, 3 in this whole room playing international rugby. You've made a highlight reel. The rest of you haven't bothered yet. Not of rugby. Why not? You're new to the game. I know a lot of the girls from the Bahamas are new, right? Right. So you've got to do it. Do it now. Even if it's not that great. Even if it's your first. How many people it's their first time playing for their country this week? Okay. So as of now, you've played this week, right? Have any of you checked YouTube? Okay. Already you can start making a highlight today if you wanted to. You could start today. Even if it's not that good. Even if you only played 2 minutes of that game. Start now and you've got it. In a year from now, you'll have played a few games. So you can make another one. but at least you've got something that you can fire out there if someone asks you. If you don't have it and they ask you and it takes you a month to make it, the opportunity just left. It's out the door. You won't be going to that school. Okay, you've got to be able to jump on your opportunities. So you've got the video, you've got your academics stored, open up a Dropbox or whatever it is that you use, where you're from. I use OneDrive Live within my Hotmail thing that I use, because I'm old and I use Hotmail, not Gmail. Once you've collected that kind of stuff, you need to start getting aggressive with your marketing. And what's the marketing? I mentioned emails. Coaches receive hundreds and thousands of emails. So you got to go somewhere else. You can still do that, because coaches do read their emails, but not all of them. You've got to attack it from different angles. Anybody study marketing? Yeah? You've got to do it from different angles. It's not just like, hey, this is what we're going to tell you and that's it. You've got to do it there and there, on TV, in the newspaper, making phone calls, all of that. So I would tell you the same thing. Send your email, if you can find the email of that guy. You've got to do the research. You've got to do your Google searches. Make the phone calls. If you can find a phone number, phone the guy. If there's a phone number there, it's because he doesn't mind being called. Call him or her. Okay? It's important, guys. I know you guys are in another country. How many of you got WhatsApp? Hands up. WhatsApp? They all got WhatsApp. Okay, so have the coaches. You know why? Because half their team is international students. So they've got WhatsApp. Okay? If you can find their numbers, make sure you use it. And then social media. How many guys on social media? Social media? Which is the most popular? Facebook still? Or nobody uses Facebook anymore? Instagram? Snapchat? Twitter? Twitter for the more serious, mature amongst us? Thank you. All right? Use them. Get it out there. Promote yourself. Tell people how awesome you are. Nobody else is going to do it for you. All right? Maybe once you're already famous, then they'll do it for you. But in the meantime, you got to do it yourself. Okay, do's and don'ts. So I mentioned social media. How many people drink alcohol? Come on, don't BS me. If you're allowed to, that's great. If you're too young, all right, keep it off social media. Keep away from the stupidities. Keep away from it. I have seen lots of kids lose scholarships that have already been given. The scholarship was given to the kid, and they did something stupid on social media, and it was immediately taken away. If I do, for example, this is a great example. I have a high school team. I have a lot of youth players. I have 200 players in my club, and they go from under 9s all the way through to under 19s. And the under 19s guys, I raised half of them. I know more about these kids than some of their parents do. Okay? So they all have my phone number because they want to communicate with me. Hey, I can't make it to training, coach. Hey, I've got a dentist appointment, coach. No biggie, okay? So they know me. I'm back and forth with them. What do you do when you hit contacts on your Snapchat? It can add anybody that's in your contacts, right? You don't think I don't have Snapchat of all those high school kids? Do you imagine the things I've seen for an 16, 17, 18-year-old kids on Snapchat? You know what happens, right? So think about that. I see that stuff as a coach. Do you don't think the university coach can see that too? Especially if you've already had a conversation with them, okay? Avoid it, okay? I know everybody does it and everyone has a good time, and we're not priests, right? And even them, sometimes they're the worst. But the point is, you've got to be able to control yourselves. You've got to think about what's best for your future. If it's cool at 17, chances are it's not going to get you anywhere in life. Okay? So just be conscious of it and think about those kind of things. There's three areas that you really need to have control of and understand exactly what it is in your life as a potential university student. Firstly is your academic ability. Okay? If you're a genius, excellent. If you're the next Albert Einstein, God bless you, good for you. If you're not and you're average, at least understand what your abilities are. If you're good at maths, excellent, keep that in mind. If you know you're not great at English literature, no problem, but understand what's your weakness and understand what's your strength. If you can control all of that, when coaches and schools get in touch with you, you'll be able to say to them, yes, I'd really like to do this in mathematics or engineering or science. If you can give quick responses, then it's going to open up doors for you. Okay? So your academic ability, just understand what it is. Not everybody's perfect. Not everybody's a genius. I certainly am not. I scrambled through school by the skin of my teeth. I got through it. Okay? And I'm sure many of you are in similar situations. As long as you know what your strengths are, that's good. But know it, have a clear idea of it, so that when someone asks you, you can give an honest response. Every day I speak to about 50 kids to try and figure out that kind of thing. And I say to them, okay, what kind of student are you? I'm like, okay, I'm okay. Okay, what kind of student are you? I'm good. Good in comparison to what? Good in comparison to my 9-year-old child? Okay, congratulations. Good in comparison to Albert Einstein? That's a complete... Tell me, I'm a C student. I'm an A student. Because if you don't, they're going to immediately think that you're BSing them. And my company will make an interview between the students and the coaches. So coaches quite often just reach out to you. Okay? They'll do it. If they like the application you've put in, they'll just call you or email you. Hey, can we get on a Skype call? And they'll immediately ask you, okay, what kind of student are you? If you say, I'm good, I'm okay, they're going to be like, okay, all right. They're already starting to think about the next person they've got to speak to. Give them clear answers. Same thing for your athletic ability. How good are you? I'm the best fly half in Jamaica. Okay, good. That's a decent answer. Yeah, I'm okay. That's not an answer. Okay, and it frustrates me as a person that helps kids doing this, and they're just shy to tell them the truth. If you don't think you're great, just give them a definite answer of what it is. Give them something numerical. Well, I played 10 times for the Bahamas. I went to the Rugby Americas North competition. I tried out for the Phoenix Sevens team. Didn't make it, but I tried out. Okay? These are the kind of things that if you can tell someone concretely, this is my... What happened? Did I say something wrong? I'm joking. You're good. Thank you for coming. So these kind of things, if you can concretely say to someone, hey, this is where I am, they'll have a good idea. They'll have a clear idea of what's going to happen with you. Okay? So having those two things. The third thing that you're going to have a clear idea of is your budget. What's your budget? How many people here can afford $40,000 a year to go to university? Nobody? 30? 5? Listen, there are schools that they won't speak to you in terms of applications unless you say, I can afford this annually. That might mean you might have to BS them in the beginning and then go hustle. Okay? Because what's going to happen, especially as an international student, you're going to have to come into that country, and you're going to have to prove that you've got a certain amount of money in the bank account or a decent credit before you even go. This is the reality of it. Okay? So what you need to do is start saving, if you haven't, and you're going to have to prove that at some point in the process. So for me, for example, if there was a kid that's 17 and they're in the last year, going into the last year of high school, the kid obviously isn't the one that's got the money, it's the parents. But you're going to have to think about that, because a scholarship is not going to be 100% all the time for a million different reasons, whether it's your athletic ability, whether it's the school that you've applied to, whether it's your academic ability. It may not be a full ride. Sometimes it is, and all power to you if you can get one of those. Okay? But those are the kind of things you have to start thinking about. Start putting $10 aside. So you know you've got that, and if they ask, well, I've already got this. At least that coach then knows that you're being proactive. Okay? All things that you've got to think about. But at the end of the day, you've got to do your research. And when I say do your research, find the schools, and I mentioned this before, find the schools that you're interested in and start applying to them. Start learning about them. Okay? Page 7. I'll get into, this is more for the parent side of things, or the folks that are paying the bill themselves for university. Costs explained. I mentioned full ride. A full ride, they exist, but they're a bit like unicorns and rainbows. Okay? But they do exist. But don't presume you're just going to get one because you're the captain of the Bahamas girls team, right? Or the captain of the Jamaica under-19s team. Don't work as if you're going to get one of those. You've got to work thinking that it's only going to be a 50% scholarship, okay? So what's the expense? I mentioned earlier, an average school is about $40,000 a year. That's realistic. If you're going to be a full-time student, who's already been through university and done a bachelor's degree? Yeah? Do you mind me asking how much the total cost was? Anybody? $45,000 a year? Yeah? What school was that? Johnson Wales in Florida? Okay, yeah, I know it. All right, so that's an average school, right? It's not Ivy League. It's definitely not bottom of the barrel, but that's average. I just told you 40, she told you 45, so okay, I'm hitting the nail on the head. They can be as cheap in community college as $12,000 a year. I've seen that. And all the way up to, like I said earlier, $100,000 for somewhere like Harvard or Yale. What kind of scholarships are available? This is where it gets really murky, and you've got to be open-minded. There's scholarships for everything. I mentioned earlier, one of my kids got a scholarship for dyslexia. Obviously, the main focus for you may be rugby, and there are schools. Lots of people will go online and say that there's no scholarships for rugby. BS. Because I know at least 50 schools that give scholarships. 50 off the top of my head. Okay? Several hundred in reality. They just keep it quiet. They don't want to tell everybody, hey, I've got scholarship money, because then everybody want to take that money. Coaches like to reserve it and distribute it where they see fit, because it's for them. It's for their benefit. Why is it for the coach's benefit? Any ideas? They know what players they want. Why do they want specific players? They want the best. Somebody said it, I don't know who it was, but they want to be the best. The coaches get paid to win games. The coaches get paid to win games. What happens to a coach if he loses enough? He gets fired. He doesn't get to feed his kid the next day, right? So that's where you have to think. That coach is thinking about, how am I going to keep my job next year? Am I going to take the kid that did something stupid on Snapchat yesterday? Or I'm going to take the kid that is clean cut, the one that turns up every morning at 6 o'clock and hits the gym for 2 hours. I'm going to pick that kid. Am I going to pick the kid that sits and stares out the back door or the window, or I'm going to pick the kid that pays attention, sits at the front of the class? Good job. Right? Who am I going to pick? Yes, miss, question. Me personally, I've dropped superstars from my team because of idiots. I have no problem, because it's a team game. How many people play in rugby on a field? 15? All right, I don't need a superstar. I'll make a team and drop a superstar in a heartbeat. That's me. Other coaches may have a different opinion. Yes, sir, question. Good point. These guys are giving scholarship money. The average school, we're talking about $40,000. The average scholarship for our company, and this is what we do every day, all day, we have 120 scouts around the world. The average scholarship that we got for all of our clients across all sports was $25,000. So do you think, if you're going to give $25,000 to a kid, that you might want to pick the right kid? If I'm going to give you $25,000, I'm going to do some investigating on you. I like your hair. I like that you're sitting at the front. Your sneakers are clean. Good start. He's got his button all the way up to the top. Okay, good start. Now I'm going to find out your name. Now I'm going to find out what your Instagram thing is. I'm going to check who your mom and dad are, maybe. Yeah? I'm going to do that because I'm handing $25,000 to his mom and dad, so they don't have to, struggle to get into school. All right? Think about that. That's a massive thing. You're representing the school. You're going to have to be in that school, studying correctly, turning up on time. Because if you do the first year and you half-ass it, they won't give you the scholarship the second year. You're going to have to go back home, or you're going to go back to a lower level college, or whatever it might be. They'll do it. I've seen it 100 times. Okay? Because Because that coach is thinking, how am I going to feed my kid by keeping my job? That's the honest, brutal truth. Okay, so a realistic number, and when I say $25,000 scholarship, that was across all sports and across all schools. So $25,000 at Yale, you still got a $50,000 bill at the end of the year. But I've seen schools, actually one of our coaches here this weekend coaches a university team, and it's only $16,000 to go to that school. That's a cheap school, and it's not a bad school. Okay? So in terms of the ranges, and they give scholarship money. Not just rugby money, but academic money. Okay? And that's just a coach here, and there's not that many teams. There's 8 teams, right? 9 teams. So they're definitely out there. There's definitely a lot available to you. So keep that in mind. You might have a final cost. Within rugby, that's pretty accurate. Out of maybe the last 10 kids that I've placed for rugby in university, I would say 8 of them were in sort of $2,000 or $3,000 either side of that. Another couple went to a higher school and they ended up paying about $22,000. I had one kid that ended up going to a school for $5,000. $5,000 a year for university is excellent. That is very, very, very cheap. All right? I've got kids that went to a school for that price, and a good rugby school too, one of the best in the country. Okay, so let's get in. You might want to take notes on this. Some of the costs that are going to be incurred for you as you go through this journey. So the SAT, some of you have already done it. If you just do a straight SAT exam, it's $47. Okay, it's nothing. If you want to do the SAT and the essay, so it's an SAT exam including the essay, that's actually $64. Okay, it just means you have a higher score. Within the SAT itself, I advise you to choose the subjects that you're good at. If you suck at English literature, do not take the English literature part of the exam. Choose the ones that are good for you. You usually have to choose 3. And the essay. If you're not from the USA, it'll be an additional $41. So you can judge it as around $100 for the SAT exam. If you're young, do it as soon as you can. Make a mess of it if you want to, so that you're comfortable with it. And then you can go take it again. You are allowed to take the SAT several times. Problem that you guys have, being non-Americans, you're not prepared for it. Google is a beautiful thing. Go on Google, there's plenty of websites out there, and there are even things that you can pay for and get help and assistance to guide you through that learning process of the SATs, okay? Everybody speaks English here, right? I did the Spanish one yesterday. So there's a TOEFL exam that you would have to take if you're in a country that doesn't speak English as its first language, okay? But I don't think that applies to anybody here. There's something called the clearinghouse. Anybody know what the clearinghouse is? Could you tell me what it is? It's okay. No problem. So the clearinghouse is basically within the universities in the USA. They'll take your exam results from other places, they'll take your SAT, and they'll translate it into their equivalent. For example, I did GCSEs and A-levels in the UK. I couldn't find my A-level certification, and I wanted to do an emergency medicine course many years ago. So I asked my mum and dad to dig out my GCSE certificates, and they sent it over, and that qualified me to get into that course, because they just translated it real quick. So GCSE was equivalent enough to get me into a technical college to do this particular course. I didn't need my A-levels. Okay, but if I wanted to go to university, I definitely need to dig those A-levels out, so I maybe need to go home and spend a weekend at my parents' house digging them out of the attic or something. All right, so they'll translate that at the clearinghouse. That's going to cost you about $150, something like that. Yeah, 150. So the clearinghouse is something that's important, and in the process, you're going to have to go through that. Okay, a visa. How many of you guys have got visas for the US? Some of you may already have it. Could you shout out what kind of visa do you have? A B1, okay. And it's so any of you guys have got work visas, student visas? Oh, really? Why? What was it? Huh? Because you finished, then they took it. Okay, so after that it's declined. Okay. So the student visa is massive. What happens is when you're going through the application process, so you apply to the school because the coach likes you, you like the school, everybody's romantic, they love each other, right? We get to the end process, and then the school says, here's your offer, and it's in a form of a letter, it's a letter of intent. You take that letter, and you'll go to your embassy and say, I've been asked by this university to go to their university because I'm awesome. Okay? And then the embassy will say, great, we'll give you the visa to come to this country. So you've got to go through all of that just to be allowed to apply for the visa. Okay? So that visa, it can be as cheap as $160, depending where you're from. I've seen it as high as $350 to apply for the visa. Well, do you mind me asking, how much did you pay for your visa? 160? That was the number? Okay. So like I said, some countries are as low as 160. I've seen it as expensive as 350. And that can be denied. You could pay that and then be told no. My company helps the kids that maybe are not sort of well-traveled or whatever to get through that process as well. I had one kid from Kenya, really smart kid, really ambitious. Parents had no money, okay? He needed to get something close to a full ride, and he ended up going to a smaller community college, but he got out of Kenya, which I think was a massive achievement for him and his family. But the first time he went to do the visa, he did the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He went in and he said, hey, I'm coming for my student visa. I've been offered a scholarship at a school in the USA. Sir, I'm going to the USA. And he's like, why are you going to the USA? And he's like, well, I'm going to be a student and I'm going to do great things. Okay, great. And the next question, he kind of looked at him and said, but why are you really going to the USA? He said, oh, sir, I'm going to marry an American girl. And he said, denied, go home. The guy was being cute and trying to draw a stupid answer from him, and he got the stupid answer. The kid was like, oh, that's nice, he's been cool with me. He's giving me a nice answer and this question, and he seems like a friendly guy. He denied him the visa. Kid had to wait 6 more months, reapply for the visa, eventually got it. We coached him through it. Shut your mouth, tell him this, don't tell him that. I don't know, we'll see. He's only just got there. Like September he got there to school, so we'll give him some time. He's only young, he's only 19. We don't want to put a ring on his finger yet. But yeah, that happens, so be aware of that. So you can be denied the visa, even if you get the scholarship, okay? And then obviously you've got to calculate flights. Wherever you are, you've got to figure out your flight. If it's to Miami, that's great, but if it's further afield, it might be more expensive. And you might have to calculate that several times in a year if you want to go backwards and forwards, you know? One of the questions that often comes up is when I go to a school and the summer vacations come around, I don't want to waste my parents' money. Can I stay at school? Yes, you can. But you have to pay to be there. You know, you're paying rent in an apartment or a room, in a dorm room. Quite often, if it's included in the scholarship, fantastic, you're golden. But it might not be. So all of those things you've got to calculate. And you've got to start thinking about that, saving the money, getting the credit, or whatever it is that you need. Rooms within schools, the first year of university, you have to be on campus. So you have no choice. So a school might say, well, it's $1,000 for your room every month. It might be. And if that's what you got to do, the second year, if you know that it's $500 to rent a room around the corner at the lady that owns the candy store, then okay, great, go do that. But the first year, you're obligated to be on campus. Quite often, the universities will include the room in the scholarship. That's quite common for athletic scholarships. Second thing is the food. How many of you guys have experienced the whole not being able to eat because I'm a student thing? I certainly did. I got really skinny. Okay? You're quite often just eating at home. They have pot noodles. You got ramen noodles they have, right? I just basically ate noodles for 3 years. I didn't get scholarships. But that's something that you have to be aware of. Many schools now, and I've seen it myself with a couple of my clients, they'll actually give a credit card that can be used on campus in the cafeteria at that school, which is great, and it's part of the scholarship. You just swipe it. You're an athlete, that particular school, they'll let you swipe it 3 times a day, so you get fed. But if not, the costs for that are going to be sometimes hefty, especially if the hotel people here have been complaining about you guys eating all the food. All right? Some of you guys get through some serious amount of nutrition. And then there's the team travel. So if you do get selected for a team and you do get a scholarship, these teams travel. USA is a massive, massive country. Okay? So be conscious of that. Sometimes you may need to pay for your own travel. How many of you guys paid for your own travel for this competition? None of you. So you all got hit up and looked after by your national team or sponsors, I guess. That's great stuff. So what happens within the universities, some schools will have money assigned to the coaches that can be used for those players to travel. Some schools will not. And you have to figure out how to get sponsors within the school. And again, this is daunting, because if you end up with the school that has no money for scholarship, has no money for team travel, has no money for food, has no money for dormitory, all of a sudden you're like, man, this is a $60,000 a year gig. I need to get a full-time job as an executive. Okay? So again, you've got to be able to, you can do this, guys. I'm telling you this, I'm telling you the worst case scenarios, but you can get scholarships, and you can, if you roll your sleeves up, if you work hard, you can make this happen. Yes, miss? Mm-hmm. That's a good question. That would depend on the school itself. 9 times out of 10, I'll tell you no. As if you're a transfer student, you've already done a year of school, and they would say, okay, it's done there. But it's not for all schools. It does, like I said earlier, there's policies for each school. Some schools, especially the private ones, will still obligate you to it, but I would say 9 out of 10, they would waive it. The word waiver would come up a lot in your conversation with your schools. And I'm talking like, I've had waivers sent to me from college coaches saying, hey, I'm really desperate for players for next season. Here's a waiver code, like a discount code you would get online. Here's a waiver code for anybody that you feel should apply to our school. And I've sent that to 5 or 6 guys that I think would be suitable and that would take advantage of it and actually do it. Obviously, I don't want to give that waiver code to someone that I know is just going to be like, whatever, the sort of flaky kids. But yeah, I hope that answered your question. So yeah, there's a lot of costs in there, okay? So you really got to get your head around that. Transfer students definitely are a group of people that colleges look at very favorably. They like transfer students. They know that if it's a transfer student, it's probably someone that's being ambitious. They'll look at your school, and if their school is a better school, it's like, oh, this person wants to do something better, whether it's going to another country, playing another sport, just going to a higher level of education. Maybe it's a more complex school, a difficult school. They like it. So if you're already in a year or two into college, don't worry about that. That's not a negative. That's a good thing. You can use that. I did mention earlier, the younger you are, the better, but that's in preparation for it and building a relationship with that coach. Because these coaches have got to know who you are and where you're coming from. So what I tell people is, if you want to do this, for example, August of next year, start today preparing your things, contacting coaches, emailing, all of those things, you've got to start doing them. If you don't start, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to just fall on your lap. Okay, so you really got to get some work done. So I get into the last page of this sort of presentation. It's the sort of the services that I offer, and I'll give you sort of a shameless pitch. And if you want to use me, feel free to call me. I've got your numbers and emails addresses, so I'll contact you guys, and then you've got my info. Guys, kids become international students in the USA every day. I place around about 30 to 50 kids a month in university on athletic scholarships. Some of them get massive scholarships, some of them get small scholarships, but I do it 30 to 50 times a month, okay? You can be one of those kids. I don't know what your situation is, I don't know what your background is, but you're all sitting in a room listening to a guy talk about doing something that would advance your life. So you look like people that are a bit ambitious and you want to do things. You've all paid attention, you're focused in it, you've asked me questions. So for me, you're people that want to do something special with your lives. If you're playing for your national team rugby, then you're obviously a special person. You can do this. I know I've just told you the worst case scenario, okay? But that's the worst case scenario. There's a lot of opportunities. If you do not play the lottery, you will not win the lottery. Simple as that. So it's a case of getting involved, starting the process, doing the little pieces. Every couple of weeks, just do something to get the process moving. And don't forget about it. And now I've got your email addresses, so I'm going to email you like twice a week. So you'll remember for like the next 4 years. Okay? I'll keep reminding you. All right? So I want to throw this out to you guys. On this last page, it says athletes-usa.com/MEX. That is a direct website that my company set up for this presentation. It's an offer specifically for the people that attended Rugby Americas North presentation today. It's a discount on the services that my company provides. We normally charge $4,000 for the service that we do. That $4,000 gets you all through the processes that I've talked about. The actual discount that you would get would make it $2,500. You would have me, you would have Alex Corbisiero behind me, and you would have my placement team. My placement team are basically a group of people in South Florida. All they do, they're actually former Division I athletes that have been through the process. They've been where you are, sort of thinking about it and doing it, and they've done it, gone through it, and come out the other end with scholarships and bachelor's and some of them even master's degrees. And all they do all day is call colleges and coaches on your behalf. That's what they do for that service. So there's an offer there. If you jump on it, I think it's valid until the 16th of the month. And in amongst there's payment plans and all that kind of thing if you wanted to use it. Absolutely no obligation. I actually wasn't going to do this. Ran offered this to me and said, would you like to do this, because we think it would be great information. And I hope I'm right, and I hope I've provided a bit of information to you. And again, I'm available. I do this 24/7. I wake up at 5:30 in the morning to take my kids to school, and before I get out of bed, I answer at least 4 or 5 of my clients at 5:30 in the morning. God's honest truth. Try it if you want, because now you'll have my number, because I'll message you all, right? I usually don't go to bed till about 11 or midnight, and I'm answering. That's what I do in the evening. I message people in the evening and respond to whoever I missed. So feel free to use me as a resource. I love rugby. You guys are awesome. Rugby Americas North is giving us a great platform to be able to do some really cool stuff, and I think you should take advantage of it. I'm available for you guys. If you cannot do this, no big deal. I'm still available to you guys. I want you to feel free to come to me with questions. Stick around afterwards if you want to ask me questions as well. And does anybody have any questions right now that they want to share with everybody? I know there was a few questions earlier, but I thank you very much for your time. If you've got nothing, and feel free to use me. Make sure you get in touch with me if I email you guys or text you guys, and hopefully we'll get a few of you guys into the university system in the USA. Thanks very much, guys. Oh, one question? Go ahead. Question? You have to go through the same process. It is the same process if you're transferring. It's a little easier because you may not have to do the SAT. If you've got, I think it's 30 credits already in university, which is usually if you've done a year or a year and a half, it's a little bit easier. You may not have to do the SAT. Depends on the school. Some schools will ask for it anyway. But other than that, it's pretty much the same process. Okay, anything else? All good? Thanks very much. Oh, one more. I'm sorry. Sorry? No. You might have missed the beginning. From 16 years old through to 24 is usually where the eligibility sits. But there are opportunities in certain systems, in certain universities, NAIA, for example, where you can still get scholarship money later in life. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I can't hear you. Excuse me. Sorry, please.
There's a cost that you explain to itself.
Okay, if you go... Right, our services is just to do everything for you. You'd still have to, we can't control, we don't deal with the embassy because you have to do that yourself. We don't deal with the SAT, but we'll provide you with preparation material, but we won't pay for the SAT itself. That you'd have to pay for. So when I was going through those expenses, they're things that you would have to pay. The school will not pay for your flights. We won't pay for your SAT. We won't pay for your visa because you have to do that directly with the embassies. Obviously, we do this internationally with kids from Zimbabwe, Europe, Australia. So we don't do that kind of thing because it's literally, you have to go in and pay in many countries physically. So all of that stuff you do, our fee is to cover what we do in terms of administration, marketing for you. We build a profile for you online. We're basically going to build a resume online. And if you go into my website, you'll be able to see that. And then that profile includes all of your statistics that you guys have collected, because I've told you to, because you're prepared, right? And then also with your videos, your highlight videos, we put all of that, and we send that to all of the college coaches. So all those college coaches around the country will receive your profile, and then we'll call them and say, hey, we noticed that you opened that profile. What do you need to know about that kid? Oh, well, next year I'm looking for a scrum half in August, so I want to know more about that kid, and do you have any other scrum halves on your portfolio? Absolutely. And then we've got those relationships with those coaches, and we call them on a daily basis through our placement team in South Florida. Yeah. So we do all of that. We'll introduce you to the coaches. We'll guide you through the application process as well. And then in the visa process, we'll make sure that you don't say anything stupid. So we guide you. We're literally holding your hand all the way through, the parent and the child, and we do involve both throughout the whole process. And that process can be as a short one would be about 6 months. Normally it's about a year or 2 years. Again, depends how early you start the process, but the sooner the better. Anything else? All right, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it.